Welcome inside Studio S. I'm Dan Koob, of course, joined by the Captain Jack Andrews, joining us inside Studio S. Again, we love your visits, your twice monthly visits here at Sporttrade.
It's good to be here. Good to be in Camden, New Jersey, I guess. I don't know. I look outside and the sun is basically setting, and it's kind of depressing. We're 4 p.m. on the East Coast and the sun's setting. Can't wait for warmer weather.
4:02 and the sun is almost down, which is a great time to be in Camden. We love our partners here. In Camden, right next to the Camden Aquarium. We also love this time of year, Captain Jack, because we are watching the famous Idaho Potato Bowl going on above the camera right now. But also we've got bowl games coming up the rest of the week. We have NFL football on Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday.
Yes.
And of course, Christmas week, Christmas Day, we've got NBA basketball all day too. It is a cornucopia, to borrow a phrase from our Thanksgiving show, of options to bet on.
Yeah, no, it's going to be great. I think the NBA card is better than the NFL card on Christmas Day, but I think both will be entertaining to watch.
One of the best things that's been going on this week, or I should say the most interesting things, not the best week, depends on your point of view if you're an Eagles fan, is the Jalen Hurts situation that's been going on the last 25 hours or so. We'll walk you sort of through the timeline. Yesterday in the Sporttrade markets, the Cowboys and Eagles opened up in a really very tight 2-win market, which was the Cowboys 51.5, the Eagles 48.5, which represents one of the tighter markets we typically see on a money line market. Elsewhere, the Cowboys were 1.5 point favorites. And then Captain Jack, we sort of looked up in the middle of the afternoon and said, well, wait a second. The Cowboys are now minus 3.5. Okay, maybe there's some market movement there, even though the fact that, it's the first time all season the Eagles had been an underdog. And then we looked up again and said, well, hold the phone. Now they're 5.5, 6 point underdogs. What happened? So when you're looking at a situation like that, and we'll do both sides of this, when you don't have any information, but something just looks fishy, how do you approach that?
I try to find what is causing the move, and I have a fairly powerful Twitter list that I've cultivated over the years, and I noticed there was some rumors that Jalen Hurts had broke his collarbone, which that would have been catastrophic. He would be out for the rest of the season. And I think a lot of the line moves were reflecting that rumor. And obviously we found out later, no, it's just a sprained shoulder. Found out even today, well, he threw just fine even after the sprained shoulder. But the damage was done. The lines had started to move. The market had gone. When I first saw it, we were still flirting with 3. And I thought, oh, that's pretty meaningful. But I didn't touch it, Dan. It just seemed like one of those situations where you got to wait and see. And so I waited, and by the time we got to 5 and to 6, then I started to say, okay, have we gone a bridge too far? Have we reached the point where you need to start considering betting on the Eagles? And in the end, I haven't made a bet on the game yet, but as we were talking before the show, I think the value can only be on the Eagles at this point, not on Dallas.
I'm very curious about, as this is happening in real time, right? You said you're trying to find the information. The line's moving. People are, frankly, opining because there are only so many people who know the right information. When you're trying to sort of piece the puzzle together, but you don't have all the pieces, and we saw this earlier this year with the Josh Allen situation where he had a UCL injury and nobody knew if he was going to play up until Sunday. Obviously, the game is on Saturday. How do you gauge it in real time?
So as a trader, you basically have to gauge it based on your strength of signal. And the weaker your signal to the noise, because there was a lot of noise about this yesterday, the weaker your signal, the more you have to pull back and say, okay, I can't put enough confidence in this to make a bet. Or if I make a bet, I just take a nibble. And I think that's what a few people did. And then as the day goes on, and once we see the news come out and the signal gets stronger, then you can increase your bet, or you can look to add more to your portfolio with it, or you just say, okay, the line has now moved past where I think there's value in the market. So, but it's totally based on a signal to noise ratio as sort of your confidence.
Has there ever been a situation, and you don't have to get too specific if the case is that this has occurred, has there ever been a situation where you had information that was not publicly known and you were able to act on it?
I've been tipped on things before, especially in the COVID period, where somebody will say, "Oh, I know a guy who knows a guy, and this player has tested positive, and the team doesn't want to announce it yet."
Oh, yeah.
And that actually turned out true on 3 different occasions.
Wow.
2 different sources, 3 different occasions. The first one I totally ignored. I was kind of like, "Okay, buddy, thanks." The second one I played, the third one I played, and it was beneficial. I don't know why there was a hesitancy. This was back late. This is back when the NBA had started back up, but they were out of the bubble. There was a little bit of teams that just didn't want to admit that they had COVID issues, and they kind of downplayed it. And then they would play another team, and you could say, okay, well, the next day I better be checking that team's roster for COVID issues, and it would carry over. So that was a different time, though.
I can't even imagine trying to bet NBA every single day with all that stuff going on.
It was,
at least NFL, there's some lead time, right?
Right.
NBA is every day.
Right. It was very interesting. It was all about knowing how much a player is worth to the spread.
Sure.
And I have those metrics from years past, and I was very up on the game during that season and was able to kind of play those angles. So, yeah, it worked out.
We'll look at our markets right now. To our right here on the screen, the Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles. As we've mentioned, this has seen a lot of movement. The Cowboys now up to $69 per contract to win the game outright. The Eagles down to $32. I'm of the belief that now they're a value. Now, I'm saying that as somebody who has publicly said on this show a couple times now, I think the Eagles are going to win the Super Bowl. I think they're incredibly deep, incredibly talented. I think Gardner Minshew could probably start on 8 to 10 teams in the National Football League. I think he's that good of a quarterback. And his career statistics will back that up. Having said that, I understand the Dallas Cowboys are also 10-4, so they're also good. You mentioned the spread, Captain Jack. It is now at 6.5 on Sporttrade. And if you want it at 6.5 right now, the market's indicating that they disagree with that number because it's at 45, the equivalent of plus 120. So if you wanted to bet the line on Sporttrade, you can do so at plus 120. We'll check the unabated full screen here that we have pulled up as well, Captain Jack. Let me toggle over to spread. And as you can see down here, that is the best number at 6.5. So
Right.
plus 120.
But it's also indicating that the unabated line being what it is, that's still a negative expected value play, minus 2.3% there, because the unabated line minus 5.5, and the amount you're paying to get to have to give up the 6, bet
Right.
minus 6.5 is a little too much. And so it's still a negative EV play. But if that's what you feel will happen, that is your best line available.
Other alternate lines here on Sporttrade are the Cowboys minus 13.5 if you're feeling real frisky on Christmas Eve. And then the Cowboys plus 3.5 is at 77.5. That to me may represent the most value. We were talking before the show, Captain Jack, about Trade the Game. And one of the interesting things that came about after that streaming session where we were live trading the end of the 1 o'clock slate on Sunday was just a difference in opinion between people who bet on sports, people who trade in the stock market. We had Matt Grecia, who was buying outcomes at 92.5, and we had Anita Marks from ESPN, who we love, who was like, why would you ever do that? Well, because the trader saw a 7% return on his investment, on his trades, and as a sports bettor, we're kind of trained to think, well, that's just not a lot of value there. So very interesting difference in opinion there. The betting markets as a total, and we'll wrap up our conversation about the Jalen Hurts injury. And even here at Sporttrade, we have been influenced in the markets by his injury as well. Yesterday, the Eagles were trading at 19.5 to win the Super Bowl, and for the first time all season, they were the top team in that market. They've now since dropped $2.50. The Bills are now at 19.5. And to me, again, Jalen Hurts, Jack, has not been ruled out of this game. Right. He sort of muddied the waters a little bit with a press conference about saying, he's dinged up, but it's week 16 in the NFL, and everyone sort of is. Nick Sirianni, in it maybe some gamesmanship, was saying, there's a possibility he may play. The injury allegedly occurred in the third quarter against the Bears, and if you watch the fourth quarter closely, the Eagles ran 4 verts all day. Mm-hmm. And Jalen Hurts, with his sprained shoulder, was throwing vertical routes regardless. So to me, the market has completely overreacted to a quarterback who might actually play Sunday.
Right. And at Unabated, we have the skills of Rufus Peabody, who is one of the sharper bettors in the history of the game. And he has an NFL simulator that we've built that has his ratings. And one of the things that Rufus specializes in is the drop-off from starting quarterback to backup quarterback.
Let's do it now.
Sure. Let's go over to the unabated season simulator. It's under the NFL menu. And we'll go ahead and we'll create a new, go to the design tab, create a new simulation, and choose unabated mode. The super secret unabated mode.
There we
go ahead, hit load this.
All right.
And here are the ratings for all of these teams. And these were actually updated today.
These are in alphabetical order. So people watching this, you're saying, wait a second, does Rufus's analytics have the Cardinals as the #1 team in the NFL? They do not.
Right. So scroll down so we can see the Eagles in the view there. And we see that Rufus is still saying Jalen Hurts might play. So let's go ahead and click the healthy tab there. And you'll see the Eagles rating drop from 6-something down to 2-something. And an easy way to kind of do what the mental math is on a game is to just subtract one from the other. So Dallas was, I think, 5.82 or something. It's either right up on the top of the screen there. Dallas was 5.24, and the Eagles are, if the injury tab is checked.
Now this is with Jalen Hurts.
With Jalen Hurts, they would be a neutral field favorate, and now without Jalen Hurts,
about 4.5 point difference.
Right, should be about a 4.5 point, and that's neutral field. So then, or actually, it's about 3.5 points difference. And then with a neutral, that's neutral field. And then when you add in home field advantage of about 1.5, that becomes 4.5. So what Rufus is kind of telling us is the line should be about Dallas minus 4.5. And when you factor in that we also went through the 3, and the 3, as most bettors know, is a very important number, you could probably shade more to the 4. So I put Dallas around a -4 to -4.5 point favorite. And that's why I said earlier, the value here has got to be on Philadelphia and not on Dallas if you're looking to play this.
Stupid question that if you're watching Market Movers and you come from a financial background, not necessarily a sports betting background, you mentioned why 3 is such an important number. Why is that?
So the way the NFL has the scoring of 6 points for a touchdown, 3 points for a field goal, the extra point, safeties, all that, scoring is not evenly distributed. You're not as likely to get certain iterations of scoring because it's going to increase by 3, 6, so on. That makes the 3, the 6, and the 7 worth more. Games are going to be decided by those differences more often. Think about it. A game goes to overtime. What's usually the winning play in overtime is a field goal, and that's a 3-point difference. What about if the game comes down?
Or it could be a 50-yard run thrown backwards 40 yards, intercepted by a defensive lineman who then runs it back for a touchdown.
Which that becomes a 6-point because they don't kick the extra point if it's not needed. So the 3, the 6, and the 7 are the key points in NFL football. The 3 is worth the most. About close to 10% of games end with a margin of 3, and that's fairly significant. And so over time, bettors have come to know this, and one of the things we first did at Unabated is we created these tools to show you exactly how much each of these points are worth, not only in NFL football, but college football, basketball, baseball, hockey, all of them. So, you always want to be able to get on the right side of the 3, and you always have to respect the 3 when you're moving through numbers.
The last note on the Jalen Hurts futures market for MVP, we don't offer it at Sporttrade, but again, with all those factors, Jalen Hurts was minus 150 to win MVP yesterday in multiple places, plus 550 overnight. So, I'm a company man. I would never suggest placing any trades or bets outside of Sporttrade, but, wink, wink, maybe you should try that. Unabated, we mentioned how we're watching the famous Idaho Potato Bowl. If you are trading on this game right now, San Jose State just scored a touchdown. They now lead 14, Eastern Michigan just scored a touchdown. So 13-9, interesting score there.
There was a missed extra point run back for a safety.
I'm glad someone's paying attention. Captain Jack with his finger on the pulse. Yeah. So if you're trading that one, mazel tov to you. Happy Hanukkah. But at Unabated, you have a bowl game pick'em.
Yeah, so this is a great contest we're putting out there, a free contest. You can follow us at Unabated Sports on Twitter. We have plenty of links to this contest. It's a college bowl pick'em contest. It starts Thursday with the Armed Forces Bowl and goes through to the national championship, 30 bowl games. Here's the twist. Instead of just picking the winner against the spread of each bowl game, you have to give a confidence point to each selection from 30 down to 1. Your most confident pick is weighted 30 points, and your least confident is weighted 1 point. And so if your team wins and you have a confidence rating of 30 on them, you get plus 30 points in the contest. If it loses, you don't get any points. You don't lose any points. And so this will allow people to kind of look ahead and say, okay, am I confident of this Thursday game, the Armed Forces Bowl, because I know the most about it? Or am I confident of who's going to win the national championship? Or am I confident of like the Penn State Rose Bowl game? I mean, it really comes down to which games are you most confident of, and that's where you're going to put all your chips. And the winner is going to get a 6-month unabated premium subscription.
Wow.
And if you're already a premium member, we'll just add it on. Then second through fifth place get an extra 1 month subscription. And then last place gets a 1 month subscription. I always like giving a prize to last place.
Mr. Irrelevant or Mrs. Irrelevant.
Well, it's just as tough to lose as it is to win in situations like this. So if you're unlucky enough to wind up dead last in our contest, we'll give you a free month of unabated.
Give me 30 confidence points on the Georgia Bulldogs against TCU. Oh, no, excuse me, Michigan against TCU. That to me is the easiest one on the board. I just don't think TCU has the hog mollies to handle Michigan. Ohio State, Georgia is a really interesting matchup, I think, from an athleticism standpoint. I think of the 3 teams that Georgia could have matched up against, I mean, Georgia, Michigan's like, strength on strength. But at least Ohio State has the athletes to maybe even test Georgia on the back end. How much do you plan on getting involved in the college football playoff?
I tend to get involved later in the playoff season. Look, the value is no doubt at the beginning if you can predict who's not going to play, because that's what it comes down to these days, is who isn't going to play. And if you can find an underdog that suddenly moves to be nearly a favorite because the favorite has a bunch of players sitting, that's always a good way to do it. But I tend to get involved a little late. I look for things like some prop plays. You can always find prop plays on college football bowl games that I think are somewhat juicy. But Dan, you made a great point there. If you have a game that is high confidence to you, I'm going against you in the contest, so I need to say that, okay, well, if Dan's confident there, I need to maybe increase my confidence
exactly,
so I don't fall too far behind if he's correct. Or maybe I take the other approach and I go high confidence on TCU, right? And so I get a huge swing on guys that are trying to tail you. And so there's so much game theory to this, and I hope people go ahead and join the contest. It's free to enter. You get some prizes. We'll throw in some T-shirts and hats, too. We're just figuring out how many people actually enter before we promise how many hats and T-shirts we're going to give away.
Oh, that sounds amazing. Another game I'm very confident in, and not just because I went to Temple and hate Penn State. Utah, just 55-5 to beat Penn State. Utah is for real. That is a good football team. And Penn State, despite the fact that I believe they're 10-2, their 2 losses are massive losses to Michigan and Ohio State. And other than that, they did not play another ranked team all season. So I would be all over the Utes against Penn State. That's my college football analysis for the week.
I was on Utah against USC in that the Pac-12 bowl there, or whatever the championship game. I thought that was one where Rufus turned me on to that. He said the wrong team is favored here. Trust me, the wrong team is favored, and he was absolutely correct.
He foresaw a Caleb Williams hamstring injury.
Well,
perhaps.
I think he foresaw that Utah was better than they were being given credit for.
NBA betting, of course, Christmas Day, always when most people start turning their attention to the association. I know, Jack, you've been tweeting that you've been using Sporttrade to trade on the NBA. I know Alex Kane, our CEO, tweeted about not only the liquidity, but the price swings that have been going on, obviously, every night in the NBA, an opportunity to really take advantage and watch that money bar fly back and forth. What about the early season NBA trading has surprised you, if anything?
Nothing has really surprised me. The thing that has surprised me is how much I enjoy the in-game trading with the NBA. I didn't know if I would or not, because the NBA is, look, I don't watch all the games. I make lots of bets. I don't always watch all the games, but you can pick up on a flow. And one of the things that I like to pick up on is NBA coaching rest schedules.
Yeah.
So like they will rest certain players at certain points in the game, and you can anticipate them coming, and the in-game prices may not reflect that that's going to be coming. So, if Steph Curry is going to sit down at the 1:30 mark of the first quarter and not come back until the 8-minute mark of the second quarter, which is actually what happens, you can pick up some value on the under, because Steph Curry drives so much offense and such quick.
Oh, you're referring to substitution patterns.
Substitution
Okay,
patterns.
I thought you meant literally like DMPs because they're resting guys, but obviously that plays a factor as well.
That's true. I was actually talking about that on an unabated live stream just this week about look at the schedule, find the situations where it's back-to-back or lots of travel, and figure that one of those games is going to be a DNP rest the what do they call it? Rest management or
Yeah.
something like that.
Load management.
Load management.
Yeah.
And
we
you
need
can,
PR to get on that one and change that one.
And you can definitely get in on those. And it's, especially if it's they're all playing in one game, but they have another game the next night in Utah, and they're playing in Denver tonight. That's a brutal back to back. They're going to be rested in Utah. So yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, and obviously, again, we take a local perspective here because we're in Philadelphia, but you're starting to see a lot of teams sort of turn it up here, at least defensively, and seeing games that'll be interesting. To me, the marquee game on Christmas is going to be Bucks and Celtics. Celtics team that's really struggled of late, going up against a Milwaukee Bucks team that's on really a litmus test 4-game road swing. Something we did touch upon last week a little bit, Jack, which I kind of want to revisit because you mentioned the ridiculous slate of betting opportunities that's coming towards everyone Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, and even on Monday as well, is just sort of making sure you're not spreading yourself too thin, right? Mm-hmm. Again, we mentioned it last week, but making sure that, obviously you are a price-sensitive bettor, you are going to be able to look and find, but for sort of like the common folk, the commoners, right? A little wisdom as to maybe the best way to approach not overextending yourself.
Dan, that's a really important point. I think a lot of bettors tend to get into this, and sports betting will take everything you give it, and then it'll ask for more. You can dedicate all of your time. We got guys that just sit on our screen, our unabated screen, all day long. They're logged in. They've got a big trading setup. And if you're a stock market trader, well, the market's only open from 9:30 to 4. But if you're a sports trader, the market's open from 24/7. And I think sometimes you gotta be able to push yourself away from the desk and say, okay, that's enough for today, or okay, I'm going to take today off, just in terms of your own load management. When it comes to those holidays, though, look, if I'm going to be in a situation where I know I'm going to be watching this game, okay, fine, I'll make sure I have some action on it. But I'm not going to go out of the way to jeopardize the family dinner or the family gathering because I want to be checking the score and trading in and out of a position. It's just not worth it. So
it makes it tough. It makes it tough. I have found that it's really difficult to be trading on games if I'm not locked in,
right,
and I can't give the game and the trade the time that it deserves. It's tough for me to lay a sizable position on it, frankly.
Yeah. The other thing is your trading platform is so fast, and your market makers have the fastest feed possible. They're ahead of the broadcast feed most of the time. Right. So you also got to figure that if you're actively trading the game, you're going to know what's going to happen, and it could ruin some of the recreational experience of watching the game.
The Phillies playoff run was not only amazing. Again, we're in Philadelphia, but knowing that something was happening 2 pitches before that, you actually saw it.
Right.
Because you're trading all these games on the app. All of a sudden, you went from being down to you're way in the green, and you go, well, okay, I guess something's about to happen here.
Right. How good is it going to be?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Along the same line, to put a bow on that, have another piece of pumpkin pie. Spend time with the fam. You don't always have to sit there and live trade every single game, although we'd love it if you tried some. Why not? Holiday traditions. Do you have any favorites?
So I got an interesting one. You know how most families, they hide Easter eggs?
I'm familiar.
My family, we grew up, they hid the Christmas presents.
Oh, interesting.
And think about this. That's a way to make Christmas last a little longer. It's also a way for you to get revenge against your kids because they're expecting one certain gift.
Yeah.
And you hide that one really well, like evil well.
I love it.
And you just, throughout the day, they're like, where's this gift? Where's this gift? And that kind of turns into this like, come on, I got to find this gift. I got to find this one gift. And that's the one where once they find it, they're just going to play with that the rest of the day. So the easy to hide gifts are, the socks and underwear get hid fairly easy, but the toy that they really wanted would get hit really hard. I grew up that way, and I kind of passed it on to my family. Now my kids are older now; they're 22 and 20. We don't hide the gifts anymore, and the gifts are mostly gift cards and cash. But back in the day, man, that was my family tradition: was hiding the Christmas gifts.
I love that. So two-part follow-up. One, do you ever just say, I guess that's it, you can't find it, you don't get them?
Yeah.
And two, love that. And two, what's the best place you ever hid a gift?
My uncle one time hid a gift for my sister so well, she didn't find it till February. and he refused to disclose where he had hit it. So we were basically, the whole family was hunting for it. And
So
finally,
she's aware that it's somewhere.
yeah.
I love that.
So
that's
I mean,
amazing.
so Hanukkah lasts 8 nights. Well,
Yeah.
at my house, Christmas can sometimes last 60 days.
That's amazing. Hey, like I tell you, a lot of people that celebrate Hanukkah don't make it the 8 nights either. So I'll tell you that right now. We're in the throes of Hanukkah right now, and I got to tell you, I'm already tired. We got 5 days left. Captain Jack, thank you as always. Just as a quick note, we're not going to see Captain Jack back on the program until next year, until 2023. So I'm going to be one of those very annoying people in the office and say, see you next year.
Okay, I haven't seen you since a year ago.
It's high time for that in the office. If anyone does that, please approach it with extreme prejudice next time you see them. Well, again, thank you so much for being here. We love your visits. That's Market Movers for the day. We will be right back here tomorrow. We have 2 more shows for the year. We're back here tomorrow with CBS's Jeff Kerr, also of Jacob Media, talking all kinds of things NFL and trading as well. We'll see you tomorrow at 4 o'clock.